Many people think Jesus taught Christianity. There are others who think Jesus taught Buddhism. I don't think he taught either one. He certainly never said, just worship me and follow me, and I got this. No, he laid out a list of things here that we're supposed to do, but they're obscure in their language. How do we understand them? How do we understand Jesus's cryptic words? Fortunately, Jesus is not the only master from antiquity that spoke with such obscurity, since everybody from Lao Tzu to the Buddha, Moses, et al. Spoke with obscurity. Now, I know there's people today that think, oh no, that's just the way it is. It's history. No, it's not. There's something hidden in here. There's something for us. There are messages. These stories are time capsules, and we need to open them. But there's a set of keys, and that's what we're going to do here. With one fairly obscure discovery that I've theorized in my life and applied it to all of these teachings, there reveals a process that if you use it on all of those teachings, they nest the same teaching. In this video, I'm going to use that process, and we're going to read Jesus and apply his words from the Sermon on the Plain to that process and see if there's something that is revealed that is beyond what we currently understand. Hi everyone, I'm Daniel, and welcome to Just One Truth. Let's get started. It was about 40 years ago in my life when I began to make the change from the Christianity that I was born into the Buddhism that I was going to study for a while. And Buddhism was very meaningful to me as I sought answers in life. Eventually, it kind of didn't work for me, though. So I went on to Hinduism, I went on to Taoism, I went on to a variety of things. And one thing that became clear over the years is that at the core, if you looked at them all a certain way, they had the same teachings in there. Now, of course, everybody knows that there's nothing new there. Probably in the simplest example of it, we would have something like Buddha's karma, where the idea is that actions, good or bad, perpetuate and generate actions, good or bad, both going out and coming in. Jesus says, the measure you mete unto others is likewise meted unto you. They're both saying the same thing in different language, that what you put out, what you are and what you become is what your life unfolds to be. That's basically it if you're looking for spiritual understanding. But to try and just cut to the chase in this video, let me try to just leap right into what we have to do. I want to work on some interpretations, but we have to look at how we're going to interpret them. This isn't going to be Sunday school where I'm just going off on some supernatural thing and what I believe the afterlife is like. This is going to be taking a really solid look at verses from Jesus in a way that we look at other spiritual verses. That means taking the idea that they came from Jesus out. This is going to be difficult. Look at the verses as if we don't know where they came from. We have to kind of dismiss, for the purpose of what we're going to do here, the idea that he is a returning Savior and a Son of God. I want to look at him as a prophet, as a Lao Tzu, as a Buddha, as somebody who supplied a body of work and said, here, follow this, and handed that to us. That's what I want to look at in this. Now, in spiritual verse, the way that I interpret it, this was taught to me from Buddhism and Hinduism, and is kind of combined, and I'm looking at Jesus in the same way here. First of all, it's a spiritual verse. What is nested in there is about me. I am a metaphoric representation of what is in that verse. The verse is not plain language. It's written or said in such a way to be strange. We know those in some cases, they're obvious. In other cases, not so much. Somebody might tell you to weed your garden, for example. That could mean you should go home and make sure that the dandelions are out of your berries or something. I don't know. Or metaphorically, it could mean you've got to get rid of the problems that you're carrying in your mind, that your mind is the garden and the weeds are metaphoric representations of the issues. They're not the flowers that are coming forth. So it's a way of telling a story or giving advice in a way that is nested inside of something. And religious teaching across the world is that way, that same way. What they're nested in is something local, but what is nested is that same teaching. So, okay, when I mean that the verse is about me, I mean that when the teacher from antiquity, 2,000, 3,000 years ago, had a message, and they wanted this message to go through time and to be available to everybody, it was about you. It was about the seeker. It was about any person on this path. There's one message for everyone, and that is what is nested inside of there. Therefore, we know that this is we'll look at it as a spiritual teaching. It's not a physical teaching. It's not about the world. It's about us. That's tough to turn it inward. So you don't tell people, here's a teaching about you. You put it in something that's more comfortable for them to pass along. The teaching is available inside to somebody who knows that, oh, it's a spiritual teaching. Make it about me. Okay, moving on from that, I'm going to define soul as the subconscious. Hear me out. It's thousands of years ago. Imagine this. Dump everything you know. Imagine you live in a stone world where there's some steel here and there, but you don't own any. This is a very primitive life compared to today. They told stories. They nested stories. They were intelligent, smart people, but they didn't pick up media. They didn't go home and turn on the TV. Their life was different. We have to put ourselves in that mode to begin with. Now they're observing life and they're seeing somebody making decisions and then doing things while they're talking to you. What is that is allowing you to take care of business over there while you're holding a different conversation someplace? Or you're thinking about something that has got you, really you're focused mentally on it and you're making a long trek and walking all day long. And at the end of the day, you realize, I don't even remember walking here. What is it that got me here? I contend that they would have looked at that and said, boy, that's your soul right there. That is evidence. There's perfect proof right there of a soul. Your mind is doing one thing while your soul is taking care of you. But I think that soul became maybe a collection house for a lot of things. I don't know if it was taught that way, but that the soul is where your demons hide. The soul is where the problems are. The soul is where we're supposed to purify and clean. So how can you do that if it's an energy, something that you're not quite certain what it is? It is perhaps something you believe that perpetuates life beyond this life here, whatever the case may be. How do you heal that? I think what they were looking at when they were talking about healing and forgiveness was something that happens up here that we know today is the subconscious mind. That doesn't mean that this is the soul. I'm not suggesting that at all. But I'm saying when they said, I see a problem here and you need to heal your soul, they didn't know what a brain was. So they called it a soul. We can look at it today and go, you know what? If they meant subconscious, bingo, I can work with that. So it's about me and it's about my subconscious mind. It's about the way that I feel. But something that I want to emphasize is we go through the rules right here, that it is the exact same set of rules that you apply to Taoism, to Buddhism, to Hinduism, to Judaism, to Christianity, to all of them. You apply the same rules to each teaching. You don't deviate that. Only in that way do they reveal that they have the same thing inside. So it's kind of like we got a puzzle here. And again, if I didn't say it in the beginning, I want to emphasize this is theoretical. It's just something that I can get my hands on. I'm looking for answers, and I found something that when I thought I understood it and applied it to my life, it changed my life incredibly so. So it made me think that it must be, yeah, everybody says that, don't they? You got to figure it out for yourself, though. I'm not telling you this is the right way. There are layers to it. You can take Jesus and interpret him until he is coming back on a white horse to take you off personally if you want to. Go ahead. But I think that I'm not going to go there, and I want to stay within these rules right here. It's really going to be something that doesn't go to the supernatural world. It's going to stay mental and something that we can all look at within ourselves. And if we treat all of these teachings the same way, We'll see that they reveal the same thing. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and jump right into Jesus. And what I'm going to do is start out with the Sermon on the Plain. They're short verses that are very easy to look at, and it's a shorter document than the Sermon on the Mount. There are fewer verses, so it'll get the introduction to the idea out there probably a little bit better. If you're interested in looking at those rules and the reasons why the rules are in place in greater detail, really looking at them and seeing why they tie to the person and to the teaching, my first, I believe it's about 5 videos or so, kind of cover all of that in great detail. As I move along here, I'm going to just start getting into interpretation. And people that aren't caught up with what I'm doing, you just have to go back probably and take a look at those. It might sound strange, yeah. I read Jesus like a person would read the Buddha. So let's get into that. I'm going to go ahead and read from the New Revised Standard Version. Okay, it will start out in the book of Luke, and in this version of the Bible, it is under blessings and woes. It's verse number 20. Most people know it as the Sermon on the Plain, if you're familiar with standard biblical interpretation. Okay, let's get started, and this is going to be a fun one. We'll spend a little time on this. It's a very good learning verse. Okay, it starts out, "Then he looked up at his disciples and said, 'Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God.'" Okay, remember the first rule I look at is that it's about me. So if I look at this verse and I read it literally, it's telling me that if I'm poor, that I'm going to heaven. Does that sound right? Does that even make sense? Okay, so what does it mean then? If it's about me, what is it about this being poor? Let's contrast this verse with the Sermon on the Mount. Now, this book obviously took a different course than Luke, so it went through some variations. But here it says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." So you see that this one adds in spirit. Here's the trick of this. It's all about the spirit. And you know what? Let me caveat that. There are some exceptions. There are some rules of conduct. There's ways of being and things about the community. As far as the spiritual teaching verses, as far as the ones that have you turn inward, as far as the ones that have you turn inward, all of those verses are ultimately about my soul and not my life conditions. So when you look at something like this, blessed are the poor in spirit, that's the subconscious, remember? That's the next set of rules. This is a parallel to Buddha saying, "Seek emptiness." That's a strange thing to say in here. What does that mean? That's a very bizarre thing. It's a teaching, though, that is obscure, and you're meant to seek it out. You're meant to figure it out. And in the process of doing so, remember, this is thousands of years ago. People don't have much to do. Send them off with something to think about. That's how they learn. That's how they wire their brain. But I know we're not here to talk about Buddha, so I'll stick with Jesus. What does this mean? What is poor? Poor is devoid of. You don't have. You are empty of. You just don't have things. You are poor. Okay. This doesn't mean physically poor. We know that it's a spiritual thing. We also take this teaching with the rest of Jesus's teachings. We put it all together in a blend. What does he say a number of times about entering the kingdom of heaven within? Probably a state of being, right? The kingdom of heaven within. That is like Buddha's nirvana, the state of peace, the state of just blissful being and love and joy. That in order to achieve that state, the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven within, that we have to become empty, that we have to become poor. Enter the kingdom of heaven within as a child. Let's analyze that for a second. What is a child? A child, remember when you were one. When I was one, I remember I didn't care about anything. I might have argued over the last cookie or which Tonka truck I got to play with. We fought and scrapped and did things like that. But by and large, I never learned things like, oh, he's stupid. She's ugly. Oh, they're fat. They're black. They're brown. They're stupid. They are godless. They are fill in the blank. These are prejudices that we become. They wire into us as a belief system, and they become a part of who and what we are. They become a part of our subconscious, and we often act out in some way. Jesus is saying, get back to that point where you're not judging. It's okay to have love, joy, peace, help. He talks about all those things. These are all things that evoke good feelings inside of a person. You feed a hungry child and you watch the joy on their face and make you cry, doesn't it? Those are normal feelings. Those are the emotions that humans have. And when we act that way, when we experience that, those are good things. But when we look at somebody and say, you're less than human, you need to die, we're going to bomb you, whatever, you know what I mean? There's the difference there. Poor in spirit, devoid of that crap. Empty out, become pure. Buddha's emptiness. Get rid of all of those beliefs that you've taken on that feed who and what you are, that drive you to have that interest, that drive you to seek out more of it, that drive you to become more that way. It just continues that way. You have to see it and stop. Okay, blessed are the poor in spirit, for they will see the kingdom of God. Boy, get rid of your convictions, the pain, the shame, the hurt, the judgments. You've been hurt, been molested, raped, all manner of things, stole from, abused. There's people that have had horrific things happen to them. There's people that can't make it that really haven't had much happen. What we each have to do, though, is turn inward. The verse is about me. It's about my soul. It's about my subconscious mind. It's about my experiences and the way that I mentally hold those experiences. I was molested. For years, I hated the whole situation, the person, everything. Why not? Why shouldn't I? That hurt. I'm justified. I can hate them. After a while, they're gone. Dead. I'm growing up. I still hate them. I'm still hurting. At some point you go, oh my God, I'm the only one dragging this. That is not having a poor soul. That is not getting to the kingdom of heaven within. That is not getting to the kingdom of God, because you are harboring things that go beyond being that child looking for the kingdom of heaven within, having that empty soul. So that's it right here. And that's a hard thing. It's hard to do. Look at that. Ooh. Now think about taking this verse and passing it on to the general population thousands of years ago and saying, here, everybody, this is the answer. Take care of your problems. Pass this around. It wouldn't make it to the second house. Put it in a promise of eternal life. Okay, so let's take a look at this verse before we move on to the next one and see what we have accomplished with it using this system, using this process. This is how you analyze the effectiveness of what you're doing. Again, we're not going to just go after it and say, boy, I think it means this. We see that this verse right here it's not quite in conflict, but there's another verse elsewhere that parallels it that is worded a little bit differently. And critically so. If you're not interpreting this, you're going to look at one of them and say, what does it mean to be poor in spirit? And the other one, what does it mean to be poor? How come these don't line up? What do they mean? Well, if we look at them and say it's all a spiritual teaching, you can take the word spirit out altogether. Remember that, first of all, there is no conflict. They're both about the spirit. The spirit is the subconscious mind. It's about the things that you harbor. It's about the things that you hold. When you start out in life, you don't have those things. You're happy, you're joyful, you're blissful. As you grow, as you develop, as you learn all of those things, as you develop prejudices, as your empty brain begins to wire electrochemically and maintain space in there, rooms in there for hating, for judging, for feeling shame, for feeling hurt. When you've got compartments in your mind storing things that you want to hide away, that's the problem. That's what Jesus is looking to dig out, those things. Not just stuff that you've done wrong. No, it's the things that you carry, that you harbor, that you think about, that make you hurt. And they're not the same things between different people. What makes you hurt is what you have to fix. That is what hurts you. It is what makes you feel a certain way emotionally. It is what generates your emotions. Not only do you feel them, but the people around you feel them, and life kind of unfolds in that way. That's how this works. We are in the driver's seat of what happens to us, whether we know that or not. That's the difficult part, because we grow up thinking we're victims. I didn't choose this. No, you didn't. You're not a victim. You're just a person in a mass of people that got brought up a certain way, and you got to get out of that, whatever it is. Well, that's kind of a strange way of looking at it. Okay, in this case, the verse, yes, it is no longer in conflict. It's about us, and it's about our soul, and it's about our subconscious mind. And we know that if we do it, if we seek to make that empty, if we seek to say, I forgive this person who raped me, I forgive this person who molested me, I no longer think that those Jews are just a bunch of ripoffs. I no longer think that, all these prejudices that come from our world that are crazy. And they make sense in that area, but they don't make sense in another area. When you realize, everybody's just having their own experience, step up out of that and look at the big picture of the world, and everybody's just scrapping. Don't be a part of that. If you're not empty, you will be a part of that. If you're empty, you won't be. You won't be affected by those things around you. It changes your life. So here we see that using that process and employing it within ourselves changed our life. We didn't turn it over to somebody who did it for us. We have to do that ourselves. We ask for relief. We ask for an ease of our pain. Never happened for me until I said, you know what? I got to go open that closet door and go in myself. I'm getting ahead, though. There's other teachings farther along. In this case, it's basically saying, clean your garden. Empty yourself. Take this plot that you have, that you started out with brand new, with nothing planted in it, and it got apples, and it got oranges, and it got bananas, and it got dandelions, and it got thistles, and it got all kinds of things all in there. Pull out all of the stuff that you picked up along the way that are the weeds to improve the quality of your garden. This is all the metaphor that Jesus talks in, this type of thing. This is why people struggle to understand him. Have arguments with Christians who start throwing verses at you, and they all come from Leviticus or the Romans. I always wonder, why don't you quote Jesus? I've never had one Christian say, you, Mr. Listen Up, you're supposed to love your enemies. You ever heard that? That's what Jesus says. People that argue with you are not Jesus people. They're Christians. But anyway, okay, Jesus is saying something different. He's saying something very Buddhist-like. It's very much empty yourself. Find inner peace. Find purity in life. And that your life unfolds based on that. And he tells us that in other places too. Do you remember that part where it says your Father knows what your needs are before you ask for them? How do you think that works? Do you even need the Father? I think the cosmos is supplying that, or it could be the Father. Who knows? I don't look at that. I just look at the results. What do I do to change my life? And it took turning inward to do this and looking at it in this way. So I guess what I'm saying here is that using this process, it was effective in changing the quality of my life, the way that I feel, the way that I experience life. So it seems very viable, and it seems like all of a sudden this verse is now not some strange mystery. We look at them that way. It's about me. It's about my soul. It's about trying to purge and purify myself. I feel better. Life works better. I put out good energy, good things come back. Anyway, okay, that's that. I hope that's clear. As we move along, it should become more clear if it's not. Okay, let's move on to the next verse then. Verse 21. Blessed are you who are hungry now, for you will be filled. Okay, as I move along with what I'm doing here, I would like to speed things up as we move along. I want to look at this verse again, starting the whole process, the literal, looking at it literally, looking at it spiritually. Maybe we do that a couple of times, but eventually get to the point where we just skip the surface layer, the literal layer. We know as we go along and we begin to learn that that is just kind of a carrier, that it doesn't contain the lesson. We just want to go right inside. But let's take a look at it now and see why it's weird. Look at this one right here. We all have people in our communities that are hungry. All over the world is we can see it unless we are isolated somehow, living life with blinders on. Being hungry does not qualify you to get food. Life doesn't work like that. We know that. We have to help each other. And there's people that die of starvation. Any reasonable person reading that would look and say, Jesus, what are you talking about? That's not true. That's not right. You're not doing anything. At any rate, you realize at some point, this doesn't make sense. This verse is like much of the Bible, isn't it? If you're familiar with it, it's like this, wow, what a crazy thing. This is why there are apologists. Their job is to take that uninspired layer and try to figure out a way to explain it, to try and justify why this says that, why that says that, why hunger this, why. Don't turn to an apologist. Just look inside of it. The verse is about me. My soul is what gets hungry. You hunger and thirst after righteousness. You hunger and thirst after knowledge. When your soul wants something with intensity, you tend to draw it to you. And let me explain something just for a second there. I just used the term soul, and I meant subconscious mind. I meant mind. In antiquity, all of our books from history all will say soul, spirit, inner being, something along those lines. When I use any of those terms, as far as healing and working on things, what I mean is the subconscious mind, the brain, the electrochemical storage place. That is where the memories and the emotions of all of our experiences reside. That is our closet with all of our life stuff shoved in there. And we got to organize the closet. We just got to open it up and start cleaning things out. Okay, so let me try to explain this in the best way that I can based on what I have experienced. So I know that my explanation is going to be minimal. It's going to be limited to my own experience. You will probably have other experiences. There's people that can add to this. I'm simply pointing out what I found. Everybody else has to walk this path, if you want to, on your own. Okay, in my particular case, as a child, I had this incredible intensity to know what was going on. Certain things happened to me in my life early on that were just kind of tragedies to me. They were hurtful to me. And they were significant enough in my mind to cause me to really want to have answers. I'm not talking about wanting new tires for your car or a jet ski or a new girlfriend or things like that. I'm talking about wanting spiritual answers. Those are different. One of them you will get very easily. The other ones, that's the physical world. That's something different. That's a product of the manifestation of your inner being. So let's just make sure we make the distinction here that if you want something that is spiritual, you want answers and you're looking for answers, you will have things come to you. I'm going to tell you to be careful because you will have people bringing things to you and telling you, stop looking. I got the answer. Here, this is it right here. And you will look and you will listen and say, that's not even what I already have. They don't have my answer. So be ready. You're going to get people coming to you. You have to distinguish. You have to analyze it. You have to look at it and say, does that work with my life? Some people tell you things that sound good, and you go, oh, I like the sounds of that. Any proof of it? No, but I like the sounds of it. I don't care if there's proof or not. And if you're that way, you're probably not watching this video at this point. I just want the truth. I want to deal with what is real. And if it doesn't make me as happy as I could be, I don't care. I want the truth. Anyway, those are the people that are going to get answers. The people that are kind of half-assed looking for answers, they're not going to get it very much. People that are scattered all over the place. You know, you want answers on Saturday when you talk to your friends after your yoga class or something like that. But then you go home and turn on the TV and get caught up in protesting and other things going on and whatnot. And your mind, you've taken your mind off of this one single path, this one single course, and scattered it and sent it on all kinds of courses doing all kinds of things. If you are on this path and you are looking for this, you'll find your answers if you focus on them and you want them with a burning desire. If you want answers, but yeah, whatever. If they come, they come. Yeah, you probably won't get them. But if you're like, oh my God, I'm at wit's end. I want to know. Things will come to you. They will. Be ready for it. Let me tell you a little bit what that looked like for my life, though. I was a little scattered in life, looking for answers, looking for family, looking for answers, looking for family, kind of back and forth. So I was never like monastic 100% on this path all the time. I deviated back and forth from this path to just going to work and forgetting about it. So it took a little while. Sometimes your mind just needs to digest. Sometimes maybe things are something you need to understand, but you're not ready to understand it yet because something else is in the way. You've got to rectify something else first. It took years for me to get to where I am right now, although I don't think that it should take everybody years to do that. I didn't have this video or videos like this. There was a lot of puzzles to figure out, a lot of odd things. Videos like this, though, can be very helpful. There's a lot of things available in the world today. I can't imagine trying to figure all this stuff out thousands of years ago. You would have had to have been part of the in-group for people to tell you, shh, here's the secret to understand what is inside of there. Don't tell anybody. Yeah, today we got the internet. Everybody gets to know everything. We get to study any religion we want from around the world without having to go there. We got a lot. This is something that is a very personal experience. And I'm just kind of conveying mine. You, if you're on this path, will probably be going through similar things. I don't want you to think that, oh, yes, I want to know. Boom. FedEx knocks on the door and hands you the book of life. It doesn't quite work like that. You will get answers, but it might come in the form of a book, a show, a comment you hear somebody make somewhere. Maybe you're someplace and you just, I don't know, have an epiphany of some sort. Go through a depression, go through something that somehow wakes you up and you go, man, I got that piece. Then you make another step and then another step. That's how it went for me, and it took I'm 62. That's how long it took. Here I am. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm not there. But I don't think it has to take that long. I didn't have to figure out what they figured out. I just saw that they all nested it. So it was easier for me. I think the time for us to understand, for humans to understand what they were teaching, is now. Realizing that there is something that they saw that was in place, that there's a scientific explanation for the mind, the human mind, the way it works, the cosmos, all of these things. Yeah, it works. And people called it nature spirits, gods, cosmic alignments, all manner of different things that they attributed this to. And they were all right that it worked. Why it worked didn't matter what they thought. It worked. They were the players. They and other people in the cosmos. Anyway, that's kind of the way this whole cosmic thing sort of works. A question is, where are you in life mentally? Are you focused in on all of the things around you? Are you all wrapped up in the physical world and what your friends are doing? And I'm not suggesting that's a bad thing. I'm just throwing something out here as something to ponder. How busy is your life? How many things do you have going on? How many irons in the fire? And there's nothing wrong with that. I've done a lot of things at times where I really enjoyed it. Other times where I had a lot of things going on and I hated it because they were obligations that I had to take care of. There's a distinction there. Find one and get rid of the other. Anyway, so as you're living life and looking for your answers with emotional intensity, the higher the intensity, the stronger the search. You might have an answer, though, that you need that is many miles away, maybe in the next state. It may not come instantly. You have to look at it and realize, okay, you have to allow things to unfold. You've got to let things come to you. But you also have to be ready to receive them. The point I was trying to make about being busy and things like that, here's an example. Everybody's done this. You think in the name of a song or a rock group or some actor or something like that. You're talking about somebody and you're like, oh, you know that. And you're thinking and you can't remember. You know it so well. But for some reason your mind is blocked at that point and you just can't think about it. And then you finally forget about it. Later on, when you're not even paying attention to it, the conversation's over with, boom, it pops into your mind. That's an example of how the mind works and how this can work as well. That's one of the ways you get answers. But it's also an illustration there that if your mind is constantly busy doing things and you're focused on trying to get something, you actually kind of put up a barrier to it and you keep your mind so active that this answer from the cosmos is like, hello, I'm trying to come in. You got to shut up. You got to be quiet. I'm trying to talk to you and you're not listening. It's almost like that. I mean, it's not literally. I have a really fun and kind of an obscure example in another video. I'll find it and post a link down below. But in this case, it took me 2 years. There was something coming to me. I desperately wanted to know, and I kept getting this number that was very obscure, and I saw it and I recognized it and I was like, oh, okay, I don't understand this. Anyway, it took several years for something that was very obscure to happen that finally kind of interpreted that for me and let me know about love in the cosmos. It was a very interesting moment. Anyway, okay, so that's it. Hunger. Yeah, your soul. You'll get fed. Okay, let's move on to the next verse. And actually, I'm still on 21. I split it up. The first half we just did. Now the second half. Blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh. And the reason I split those up is because they are quite a bit different. The first one is telling you that if you desire spiritually answers for life, what you're looking for to heal, you will find them. The second one is a little bit different. This one tells you how to go about doing that. So let's look at this one. Blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh. Okay, I've said that the outer verbiage of the verse is the shell and is simply the carrier. And that's what we're reading here, just the carrier. And to be honest, it's not a very good one, is it? You look at this and say, is that a spiritual verse? How does that change my life or assure some sort of an afterlife that is conducive with my beliefs? You look at it and go, okay, I don't know what to do with that one. Again, here we go. We'll turn it inward. This is about yourself. This goes with the first verse. The pain, the shame, the things that you've accumulated, you have been told, shut up. Don't tell anybody. I will hurt you. Or you will be ashamed. People will laugh at you. You don't want people to know. You hide them away because they're hurtful, they're shameful, and you don't want to deal with them. So you want to do the tough thing and deal with it and hide it away and put it away. Congratulations. You just created a monster, a demon, a skeleton in your closet. You gotta let them out. You have to mourn your pain. You have to deal with yourself and what you carry. If you want to laugh, if you want to have a good life, you got to deal with the stuff that you're picking up along the way and figure out a way to set it down. If you don't laugh, if you don't deal with that stuff, if you don't open those doors, if you don't make friends with those creatures that act out, they will hurt you again and again and again. We already know this. When we act out and we get angry, or we hit, or we drink, or whatever it is we do that is destructive, that people around us go, oh my God, I'm finished with you. Or it doesn't even have to be that extreme. How far do you want to go? I don't see in here where this outlines the mechanisms of forgiveness, but ultimately, we can see what it is by analyzing it. Something happened and you perceive it in a certain way. It hurts you or it makes you feel good and you store it that way. Two identical instances can happen to two different people, and one can be hurt by it and one not. It's a mental thing. All of this spiritual stuff is a mental thing. It's in our minds. You know, I think the Romans kind of tried to take Jesus and said, we got your salvation. Come and see us. Come and tithe and join our church. We will make sure that you understand what you need to and we'll get your salvation. Jesus is saying, your salvation is in your hands. This is for you to do. You want to take care of this? You better do it. You don't do it after you're dead. You do it now while you're alive. God, see how I deviate and do those little side things. I go all over the place. I apologize for that. It's a big topic. It's hard to encompass it all. I don't have a structure. I apologize. Okay. The important thing is to forgive, to find a way to clear those things out of us. We start out as a kid. We're happy. We're blissful. We go through life. We accumulate a lot of things that are hurtful. And those things are something that are incredibly personal and something that only we would know. Actually, that's not true, because when we act out, other people know then. We're known by our fruits. People screaming and yelling at gays, going to hell. Yeah. Take care of your problems and leave people alone. Okay. People will find out, people will know what is inside of you emerges from you. It comes out. We know this. You can look at your own life and say, boy, the thing has almost been an entity sometimes. You can get these issues and put it away and feel horrible for what you did, and you don't know why you did that, and you apologize and you make amends, and you don't want it to happen. You don't want it to happen genuinely, and then something sometime down the road triggers it, the conditions are right, and boom, it comes out again. It emerges. It's like an entity. That is what the ancients said. Ooh, that's a demon. Here's a person that doesn't want to act that way, yet something is taking over him and making him act that way. And when it leaves, I'm sorry, I didn't do that. It wasn't me. It's something else. No, it is you. It's a part of you that you deny. And since you don't recognize it and you're not friends with it, you think it's something else. It's a part of you that you don't recognize. You deny it. And when you deny it, it's got free reign. It does what it wants. You have to change your life by changing that right there. That is the problem. Where did it come from? It came from an incident, something, somewhere, somehow. Something happened between people. Property, something. People were somehow hurt. Just think of your own situation. Think back on your greatest pain. Let's do it that way. Let's try to be more specific, maybe, and not so vague. Think in your own mind of something you don't want to tell anybody, something that's very hurtful, something that's very shameful, or maybe you do tell people, but you just can't get over it. It hurts. Think of something like that. And then look back and understand where it came from and say, boy, that happened. It hinges on this right here. This happened, which caused that to happen, which made this person do that. And I'm just, boom. That's the seed right there. That's what you're looking for to pull out the seed. You go back to that point and you go, the problem, what made that a fruit or a weed or something that is benign was the way I stored it at that time. How did it affect me? How did I experience it? If it's happy and good, that's what you're looking for anyway. Store that, leave it there. If it's hurtful and hateful, you need to get that out. We pass along everything to our offspring. The hurt that we got, we give to them. They give to them. I mean, it modifies along the way. But you can look and see a chain. You got to step out of your personal life surrounds me, I'm a victim status and go, I'm just the next link in the chain. I can let go of that. Look, I've deviated from that verse, haven't I? I'm trying to help trying to show, I think, the processes that I went through and why these verses, being so small, contain so much. That's a strange thing with spiritual verses. You take something that is very minimal verbiage and it says more than something that is explained a lot. And that sounds weird at first. You would go, I don't get it. What do you mean? In the spiritual world, it's that way though, because it's open-ended. Let's say you took a verse and said, let go. That's a verse right there. I'm going to call it a spiritual verse. But somebody might not know it is, and they just think, I'm not holding on to anything. I'm done. They leave it. They go. While somebody else who is taking some spiritual path and picking up keys along the way, things to use, knows to turn it upon themselves, and they realize this verse means to them that they're supposed to turn loose of what they're hanging on to, whatever it is, something that they need to let go of that is derogatory. Anything that is derogatory, you need to let go of, whether it's anger, shame, pain. Anyway, you can tell by the emotional state of it. If it feels good, yeah, go for it. The things that you harbor that you don't want anybody to know, when you just think about them on your own, you don't even tell anybody, it'll evoke a physiological response. Your heart rate will go up, your palms sweaty, you'll feel bad about it. Yeah, that's the stuff right there. That is your biggest enemy right there to your life. We don't know it. We're scared of it. It's hard to learn to look at it, and it's hard to maybe reason out why you should. You know what? Sometimes your life has to be to the point where you're like, I am so finished. I will try anything. You got to kind of be at wit's end. Anyway, okay, so that's it. That's stuff you fix. You have to mourn. And when you do, joy. Bingo. There's the verse. Short, sweet, expansive. And it goes along with what? If you employ that, if you use it in that way, it changes your life. I don't see a route to heaven. No, I don't see any supernatural path there. There might be. I may not be the right person to see everything that there is here. I might just be able to see a little bit. And that's okay. I'm happy with what I'm finding. I think it's a good starting point. And I think that it actually goes along with what world teachings all share in common. There's only a few world religions that deviate from the rest and go way off into outer space someplace. And if we bring those back to planet Earth, they still all match. Okay, let's move on to the next verse then. Here we go. Okay, we are up to verse 22. Blessed are you when people hate you, and when they exclude you, revile you, and defame you on account of the Son of Man. Okay, this verse is going to look different than the other two by quite a bit. This one is not a teaching verse on how to look inward and heal yourself, how to look at your soul, your experiences, your life, and let things go. This one is a warning. This one is a warning that's letting you know that when you are doing this, when you are in a group of people who all live this life of not awake, of having these experiences, and you're going to find out that the world has been raped and molested and hurt and abused and played and has guilt and shame. You're going to find this is an incredibly prevalent situation, and very few people are going to look through what it takes to go through the narrow gate. Many are called, few are chosen. Anyway, in this case, what you're going to run into is growing because you personally have decided that you want to, and you are going after your greatest pain and shame. And what that represents to the people around you is going after your greatest pain and shame, the very thing that they want to hide. They're not gonna like it. And you're going to represent something to them that is kind of scary as you're growing and going through things and saying, hey, guess what? I got molested, and somebody else that got molested is going to be like, well, you know, you're going to see those reactions and things start happening. You're going to see people's fears emerge, and they will lash out at you with those fears. And that's what this is telling you, that if you do this and you're in a group of people, be ready. I think people that go through this, though, can handle it. You know, you start and you have an epiphany, you resolve something, you tell somebody something you weren't going to tell them, and you forgive somebody, and I swear you will feel like it's 2 weeks before you can feel the ground under your feet. You will feel so enlightened. You're going to want to tell everybody, I got the answer here. This is what you need to do. We all do that. And people around you want to punch you. Leave me alone. Get out of here, you freak. Yeah, that's what happens. This is a very... You're breaking away from the group that thinks there is no way to break away, that thinks you're wrong. You're getting out of a pen where people are comfortable, and you want them to go with you, and they don't want to go. This is a path you're going to take on your own. If you take this path, it'll take a lot of courage. It'll take a lot of facing things. It's going to take a lot of setting your ego aside and saying, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I'm that person. Yeah, I'm that asshole. Yeah, I'm that dick. Whatever. You got to be able to do that, honestly. I don't mean put yourself down and just say, oh, you're worthless. That's not right either. This is why it's difficult to take a personal self-path. The Upaguru, the guru nearby. This is what we're kind of talking about here. This is the life experiences, your capacity to see your life unfolding and saying, I recognize what's happening. I just blew up at that person about gay because something that happened to me, and I recognize that. You don't need somebody else to tell you that. You know it more than them. You're the one that denies it. Or I am, or, you know, if the shoe fits, wear it. If not, hey, pass it along. I'm not saying you're this person. And it could be anything. What is it that makes you feel like you don't want to tell somebody? That's easy to spot for you. Okay, yeah, there it is. It's a warning. You don't have to do this. Just be ready for it. Your friends might not continue to be your friends if you go on this path. You got to be careful. You got to be reserved. And as you grow and as you take care of things and as you begin to see clearly, oh, my problems were being brought on by me. And now my friend over there, I can see their problems. They're doing the same thing. I want to help them. Man, if they don't ask, they're not going to stay your friend. You got to let things go. So, yeah, this verse covers that. The Son of Man, on account of the Son of Man, that is the growth, the path, the Buddhism, the Christ nature, the Buddha nature, the kingdom of heaven within, kingdom of God. There's a lot of terms that we can probably minimize their definitions to something that we can grasp, and that would be what we know, and that's happy, blissful, loving, caring, kind. Yay. Everybody likes that. Let's move on to verse number 23. Rejoice in that day and leap for joy, for surely your reward is great in heaven. For that is what their ancestors did to the prophets. Okay, what is this telling us? When you find that day where you're standing there going, oh my God, my world is crumbling, everything is changing. People that were friends with me hate me and they're calling me names and saying things that are not okay because you scared them and you don't know that. Rejoice, you're on path. That's just letting you know that if that's the effect, then you're doing the right thing. You're actually causing that effect. Leap for joy. You don't want to hurt people, but just understand that you're on the path. For surely your reward is great in heaven. Heaven is what? Let's just remember we're going to stay within the rules and not go supernatural. So I'm not going to really address that other than to say Jesus also uses the term kingdom of heaven within. And I think that reward is great in heaven means wonderful, glorious life. At least that. For that is what their ancestors did to the prophets. Because this has happened to everybody else along the way. It'll happen to you too. You're following the path. We're not following the teachings of magical, mystical beings from afar. We're following the teachings of humans who figured this out and nested it in magical, mystical ways. We are like them. They told us that. Let's go. Verse 24. But woe to you who are rich, for you have received your consolation. Remember the first verse. Poor, rich, empty, full. Rich, you've received your consolation. When you are full of things, you're getting what coincides with what you're full of. Whether you like that or don't like that. If you don't like it and you keep fighting it and getting angry at it, you're making it stronger. The very thing that you hate is an experience that you feel in your head because of the electrochemical way that it's stored. And the more you look at it and the more you practice hating it, the stronger you build this up here. You're the one that is listening to your thoughts. Everything that you feel towards other people isn't in their heads. It's in yours. You're creating yourself. That's why it's important to not judge. You let things go. When you hate somebody, you're creating hate within you. When you hate a race, you're creating race hatred. Whatever it is you hate about somebody else, you are creating in the cosmos of oneness or whatever. Okay. In this case, that's it. Simple verse, right? We're not going all over the place here. We're sticking to just spiritual. If you're full of yourself and you feel good about it, take a hike. You're happy. Go live your life. You got your consolation. There's nothing wrong with that. Verse 25. Woe to you who are full now, for you will be hungry. Woe to you who are laughing now, for you will mourn and weep. Okay, right here we recognize lines actually in both of these that are contrasted from the opening lines. The being rich is not a good thing, being poor is a good thing. That's a little bit later. You can almost look at it, if you're familiar with Buddha's Dhammapada, as the contrasting verses, like in the first section right there. I'm not going to get into that over there. But at any rate, what you can see right here is that it's not a spiritual verse about cleansing your soul, about how to turn inward or anything like that. But it is telling you, if we use the same rules, the same metaphoric representations, the richness, the being full, if my soul is full right now, it is full of presumably things in life that are things of the physical world that you can't take with you. And that later on, when it becomes important, you will then hunger and realize all of these things you sought after Didn't bring you the happiness. I don't know. Sounds like it could be that way, right? Or am I just making that up? Woe to you who are laughing now, for you will mourn and weep. So that means the people later who have not resolved their issues, who haven't gone in and said, okay, I'm going to forgive. I'm going to make friends with all the skeletons in my closet. I'm going to put all of this stuff to rest so that I can have love and peace in my soul without all these creatures acting out. When somebody won't do that, then they continue to accept that life of acting out. But the reason they accept it is because they will always think it's somebody else that is deserving of that. We don't. When we do that, we don't see the motivating factor behind it, the anger, the denial, where it comes firing right out from. Sorry about that. I never did that before. Anyway, basically what this is saying, that if you don't take care of that stuff, you're going to regret it, or maybe you won't. Some people just have nasty lives into their old age. Anyway, is that what it's about? In this case, it doesn't matter. This one, I can look at and say, well, I'm not doing that anyway. I'm going for it. I don't need to worry about whether or not my soul is rich. You've heard my story. I'm dumping. I'm not taking anything with me. I'm unloading all my baggage. I want to see what happens, and so far it's pretty good. I want to point out that there's a trend so far in just this first section right here. It starts out with the very first verse telling you what? That the poor in spirit sees the kingdom of God. You're looking for emptiness. The second verse goes right into forgiveness, mourning, healing, doing whatever is necessary to rectify that. Then it goes on to tell you that as you do that, the people around you are going to be up in arms about it, and they may not want to continue to be your friends. And that when you see that happening, know that you're on course and that you're doing the right thing. And that they will say bad things about you and do bad things about you, and that that's what's happened in the past. And that suddenly right here it's saying for the people that don't follow this, that don't go on this path, they'll regret it later. That's the flow of what we have so far in this document. It's a spiritual teaching, no doubt, if you unfold it this way. But what is spiritual if it's subconscious? If we leave it as spiritual, I can't do anything with it. If we make it subconscious, suddenly, poof, wow, I can change my life. That's wonderful. Okay, moving on to verse 26. Woe to you when all speak well of you, for that is what their ancestors did to the false prophets. This is one I can look at and see some variability with, and I also see that I can't turn it inward. I can't find a way to make it about my soul. That I don't see something in here that's a clue or a piece that if I miss it, I'm not going to make my path. I definitely don't see that here. What I do see is it seems to me that the people that go on this path tend to be introverts, the people that take the time necessary, the people that have also the feeling type personalities. I think we're starting to narrow down the amount of people that are actually going to go on this path. But I think there's a lot of people out there that would, for business or power purposes or for whatever purposes, would gather big flocks and want those people to follow them, and they would tell them, I will lead you to salvation. And people go, and those people need that. But I believe after you get done doing that for a while and you're ready to take different steps, you realize that you're like in this mass and you want to rise above it. And yeah, people aren't going to like that or anything, but you're going to kind of go off on your own. Nobody's going to be with you. It's kind of an introverted trip. These are not big group things. And then you're the kind of person that if you make this trip are not the kind of person that says, oh, I'm going to go gather up a bunch of people. That's counter to the teaching. If you learn the teaching, you're not that kind of person. So by default, you're already kind of out of that. Although, yeah, I know people can get corrupted, I think. I, and maybe that's what this is speaking to, perhaps. I don't know. But I look at it also and say, well, I don't care. I'm just taking my trek. I don't care what this says. It doesn't look like something I need to say, oh my God, I need this with me. It just looks like sort of a warning that if a lot of people speak well of you, that there's an issue with your message. I think that my message is always going to be this way. Here's a path I took. This is my results. It's yours to take, but it's an inner path. Nobody leads you on that path. That's a personal path. No one can take it but you. No one but you. Who's a false prophet? Anybody who says, I'll lead you to the... Yeah, you got to lead yourself. This is a personal thing. Anyway, so I think I need to keep these videos down to probably this length, as long as I should let them get. So I'm just going to call this part 1. On part 2, I'm going to go ahead and just pick right up where we left off. I'll jump on to the next verse and start with the interpretation. So anybody that jumps on that video first is not going to understand what's going on. I hope you've got a better idea of what I'm theorizing here and looking at. And the reason is ultimately because if you look at it and you apply it, it provides results. And the results are very enlightening and uplifting. It does change your life. It changes the quality of your life, the quality of your experiences, and it changes the quality of the results of your life. And that's what's happened to me in my life. Typically, each religion is going to have a way to function, a way to address the deity or the energy source or whatever it is that that particular religion hinges upon as a belief system. And that with faith and that with conviction and that with love and that with forgiveness, if you address in this manner, your God will provide. Or with faith and with love and with conviction and with forgiveness, you address the cosmos in this manner, you will get results. And it works. And they say, look, the cosmos is right. Or look, God is right. Or look, whatever is right. They're doing more things similar if they're successful in their religion. And we see a lot of Christianity, mainstream right-wing stuff today I would not consider successful. That's pretty radicalized stuff. I'm talking about people that follow Jesus, that are really loving, kind, tender, love your enemy kind of people. Make friends with them. Destroy them by embracing them. You turn it inward. But it's meant, again, to be carried by the masses who would never carry the tender, loving story. It's not macho. Anyway, all right, I'm going to end this video. It's an hour. I'll have to do it in multiple parts. I didn't realize that it would, take this much. I had to unpack a bit to start, so I realized we're kind of slow getting underway. In the next video, I'll get started right on the next verse and we'll jump right into it. So until then, take care. Love one another. See you in the next video.